So today's video is going to be a little bit different. And the reason I say it's a bit different is because I'm not actually just on my own, which makes a nice change, to be fair. Instead, I'm joined by Marco, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. Economy-wise. Fresh servers is probably I'm not going to say main focus. You'll be able to take some things out of this, even if you're playing on existing servers. But definitely, if you're on a fresh server, you're going to want to listen to this, because we're talking about all the ways that you can make sure you've got enough gold for those key milestones, like getting your ground mount, getting your epic ground mount, being able to fly at 60, and all the things that you can do between 1 to 80, but 70 during the pre-patch. And then hopefully, as long as you take one or two things away from this, that will be good. So Marco, over to you if you'd like to introduce yourself to everybody.
Thanks so much for having me on. I used to be the publisher for a daily morning blog called Just My Two Copper, which was primarily focused on Wrath content and making gold while leveling.
How did it come about? When did you start? When did you stop? That sort of thing.
Was thinking about it the other week. Bellula actually mentioned it off the cuff when he was doing an intro to one of his videos. And he was saying something like, I remember the good old days of Wrath. I'd wake up in the morning at 8 o'clock and I'd read Just My Two Copper posts, and I'd go over to this website and I'd do that. And it was just like a feel good, here's Marco's ideas on making gold every day. And it was very consistent. We had a forum with lots of really serious gold makers. And it was just like a place that linked to all the other places online where you could get information. So it was a nice like homepage for your gold goblin.
I mean, that's amazing that Bellula, this many years later, like you say, 13 years later, and yeah, you're still getting shouted out on YouTube videos. That's pretty impressive.
I'll take what I can get.
In which case, like, you know a lot about WoW economy and how to make gold. And obviously, I've got a lot of experience with servers that I shouldn't really talk about, but I still choose to anyway, and just hope Blizzard don't ever listen to my videos. But so, I've seen the fresh start many, many, many times and had that initial gold struggle, the actual getting enough gold, like I say, just as simply to be able to get a ground mount whilst also learning all your spells and abilities on the way up. And obviously, the chances of being level 40 and being able to get 1,000 gold to get dual spec before you've got your first level 70 during the pre-patch or 80 during Wrath is obviously extremely unlikely. But if you've got stretch goals and you're more bothered about making gold at lower levels than you are at actually getting to max level, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but not something that I would be brave enough to try. With that aside, should we start with professions? So we're talking Fresh has just launched, it's day one, let's say it's the week before Fresh, it's now. Somebody who's doing some research trying to find out what is going to be the best approach to these Fresh servers to make sure that they've got consistent amounts of gold coming in, or, just not feel left behind. What do you suggest?
So I think I learned a lot from watching hardcore players, actually, because my guides have always been, I have an established server. How do I make money off all the people who are already 80 and they're willing to waste a lot of money, on lower level profession materials? But a lot of the hardcore players, what they'll do is they'll take something like skinning and they'll just vendor every single thing they skin in order to make some money. I think in general, you want to do an approach like that on a brand new server where you do a lot of vendoring of expensive trade goods that vendor for an expensive amount, such as a bunch of leather that you get. The other thing is a lot of mobs are going to die. So there'll be mobs all over the place that are not skinned that you'll just be able to pick up. I do think at some point you have to be careful. I think that is the legit strategy for week one, but by week two, I don't know. Maybe you stop doing that, because a lot of the low level materials, and especially things like, well, we'll get into it later, but in general, a lot of low level materials are actually the easiest way to make money, because people they don't want to go out and farm stuff. They just want to buy it up real quick. And, what's 1 gold to someone who's a low level is a lot, but somebody at a high level doesn't care.
Yeah.
So I think there's a huge difference between I'm a week one person and I want to be at the top of the game and I want to be first to everything. I think you're vendoring a lot of really valuable stuff to get there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So, yeah, briefly, as we were discussing before we actually started this, my plan, or what I'm actually testing tonight on stream, is going to be, how much gold can I make from skinning at low levels to make sure I've got enough gold to get my ground mount at 20, be able to get, epic riding at 40, all that sort of thing. But also, yeah, the caveat to that is the fact that you are getting a short-term benefit for what you could play the long game and definitely get a lot more gold for. and I'm going to say something that's really going to be unpopular, right? Like people will flame me in the comments, and I'm happy. You know, I like that. I like dividing the audience. I like people to, yeah, I like challenging people basically, you know, and just speaking the truth. Which the truth of the matter is, even in Fresh, the place is going to be plagued with bots from day one. So there will be literally, by the time you hit level 10, there will already be bots farming Peace Bloom, Earthroot, you know, all the low-level herbs, or farming the low-level, you know, ores. So there will, I'm not going to say the market's going to be saturated instantly, but it's not like it's going to be a fair and even playing field, if you know what I mean. It's like by the time you actually get round to selling them, there's probably already loads on there because somebody who's bought in has not even bothered getting to level 10. You know, literally all they've got to like level 7 or 8, and they're already flooding the auction house with this stuff. So I suppose there's two ways of looking at it, is what I'm saying. You know, as in, yeah, vendoring them might seem like a bad idea because they will be worth more later on. But at the same time, while you're vendoring them, you're getting that instant benefit, and there's already bots flooding the auction house, if you know what I mean. Well, I don't know how you feel about that. I know it's a bit of a sour topic.
Well, I think what you really have to look at is when are people going to start hitting 80? Because anyone who really rushed to get to 80 didn't do their professions. And they're going to turn around and they're going to go, where's my copper ore? Where's my Peace Bloom? Where's my mithril? So the way I would look at it is maybe the first week, I think vendor your skinning mats, they're not really worth that much even when you do sell them typically until maybe like around level 40 plus. But like your ore and stuff, I think you don't vendor that. I think you save that because you know most people at 80 are going to switch to engineering, jewel crafting, blacksmithing. There's going to be a lot of death knights, right? So there's going to be a lot of people doing that. I think there's a week 1 strategy where you're trying to get to 80 by like week 2. And then there's a strategy for the normal person, which I think vendor the skinning mat's fine, but like don't vendor anything else. Like if you find like a blue, for God's sake, don't vendor it. Like the thing's probably worth, 10, 20 gold if it's a twink item a month later. I think you have to be careful with just vendoring everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know, absolutely makes sense. And I done something very, very similar. I made a lot of gold early on in Classic, like original, back in, well, not as in back in 2004, but in 2019, where, yeah, all the blues I was getting, I just kept sending to a bank because they were selling on the auction house for about 10 silver, literally 10, 20 silver. And anything that dropped, I would literally just bank. And seriously, some of them I was selling for 30, 40 gold, just a matter of weeks, maybe small amounts of months, 1-2 months later. So no, you're 100% right. It is about knowing what to keep, what's gonna appreciate, and what's gonna depreciate.
So my take on the professions is take skinning for that vendor money, and then take either mining or herbalism to make money week 2, week 3 into the game, and just save it all. And if you're a slower leveler, it's gonna work out great for you. You're gonna, maybe hit 30 by the end of week 1. Maybe you didn't have enough money for the mount right away, but then you do as people start to hit 80 and they start buying your stuff. I just think that in pre-patch, everyone's gonna be so rushed to level. If you're one of the few people who are careful to gather materials as they're leveling, because you're gonna level 50% faster, you're gonna out-level your mining so quickly. You'll be off in the barrens and you're still on copper. So I think it's worth it to take your time because there's a wall that everyone's going to hit, and that is waiting for wrath. So you don't have to get there in week 1 or 2, right? You can get there as close to the wall as you want, and then all these materials that you've gathered, especially on a fresh server, nobody has that. They all speed leveled. Now they're off running GDKPs, and none of them are going back to get their mining stuff until it's too late, so they're going to the auction house, and then I think you can make a killing. Like, I think you should aim for like it paying for your epic mount kind of thing.
So what would be the profession? So we're saying mining, definitely, because like you say, the amount of people that are going to go engineering, but would it be worth going, like if you go mining and herbing, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to want to do inscription because, even people like me have hyped up, the Dark Moon card greatness. Well, when I say hyped it up, it's not hyping it up. It really is that good. Would it be mining, herbing, or would it be better to go mining and skinning so you're mixing both, getting the instant benefit? Yeah,
that's what I said. Yeah, mining skinning is fine, or herbalism skinning it first. And then when you
Hmm.
max out, when you hit max level, you probably go herbalism and you go back and you just farm the crap out of it and get glyphs. I mean, glyphs, honestly, on the non-fresh servers, I don't know how much money I'm gonna make. In the original game, I made 1,000,000 gold, like just from glyphs. It is insane how much someone will pay when there's no glyphs on the auction house. Like if you look at the number of people on your server and you multiply by the number of glyphs they're all going to need, it's insane. There's
Hmm.
not enough herbs on the server like people have stockpiled thousands. It's not enough. So on the fresh servers too, I think you can at some point you switch to herbalism, maybe at the end of your leveling process, and then just stockpile herbs and start milling and selling glyphs. To be fair, I think glyphs will be the #1 seller even on fresh servers.
Yeah, no, I do. See, I think with especially more so in Wrath, like Wrath, yeah, when like during the pre-patch, yes, people will be buying glyphs 100% on fresh but like on all of the servers. But I think come Wrath, if you're lucky and you get one of those big ones from your inscription research, and you get like glyph of obliterate for a DK, for example, it's a staple glyph in your as a DK, a frost DK, obviously, in your arsenal. And if there's only one or two people that can make it, like you say, there's still only a certain amount of high level herbs early on that have actually been farmed that haven't been consumed by other things like alchemy, blah, blah, blah. So, like those, I've seen on a fresh Wrath server, I've seen those go for like 500 gold each, which 500 gold for a level 80 glyph, when we're talking it's like 1 to 2 weeks into launch. Like, that's crazy amounts of gold.
Can I say something controversial?
Yeah, go.
You might actually want to buy some stuff while you're leveling. Don't waste your money. Like, be careful. But there's going to be people who are posting, like, just with an undercut add-on. They're just undercutting the current price. And you could see some really good items, especially trade materials, herbs, etc., that go for way too little on a fresh server when people post them for the first time. So, some people may post them for the default auction amount, which is really, really low. So I think I agree with you that mining or herbalism and skinning is the beginning. And then definitely by the end, you should go like herbalism glyph or something. Like you should have a progression in your mind of when you're going to swap professions. Even if you want to go blacksmithing, jewel crafting, or something to get the best gems with extra sockets at end game, you have time to do it. We're all going to hit a wall on the fresh servers where we can't make any more progress on our character. And so it's all just, hey, what do I go farm? How do I go, make gold for Wrath?
Do you think there's any professions where actually you might not make that much gold while you're leveling, but it would be worth like sort of taking the hit early on for when you're 70 during the pre-patch? So an example would be going herb and alchemy. So actually leveling with one gathering profession, one crafting profession. So once you're level 70, you're more or less got your alchemy maxed already, so you can start pumping out flasks or whatever. I think inscription would probably be a better example. So you are sort of cornering the market on glyphs very early, because other people that are just going herb mining or mining skinning, they're not going to have that luxury until they reach max level. Whereas you might be level 30 odd and you're already making decent glyphs that people are going to buy. But then on the flip side, I see probably what your argument's going to be straight away is, well, no one's got any gold to spend. So, I don't know.
On Psalm, did you play Psalm?
I played the first about 2 days of it. I'm really not a vanilla fan.
It was a good experience in terms of like, how do I buy stuff early on, because there's so many cheap things on the auction house, because you know what's going to happen in the game, kind of like Wrath. But we don't have to talk about that then. For alchemy, it's a little bit of a buff, a little bit of a nerf. You can't stack a bunch of potions on yourself anymore with a bunch of elixirs, but you can use potions faster, I think. Isn't it like every minute? Am I wrong?
So on a raid boss, you can use one potion per fight, basically.
It's something we didn't talk about that I think is a better example of what you're talking about is tailoring. So you could take tailoring and make bags for people, and you will be making a killing on the auction house at first. Like if you're one of the first people to put rune cloth, even if you're not one of the first, if you're just every day taking some cloth and making a couple bags, you'll make money.
Every single person is going to want, well, more bags than they want glyphs, because you're going to want 4 bags just on your character, and then all of your bank slots being full. and you're not just going to settle for the one size bag from the get go. You'll buy your linen bags from someone first, then you'll probably go up to wool, then up to silk. So it's something you're going to buy a lot of. I think actually, yeah, like a really good tip would be to make sure even early on, you if you've got a second account or a second character, you've finished on your main for the day and you got 10 minutes before you go to bed or whatever, to start on your alt that's going to be your tailor. So you just, all the cloth that you get on your main, you can funnel to your tailor just to be pumping out bags. I know like a lot of people are going to do it, so it's going to be quite an aggressive market, but even if you're just making them for yourself and for the guild or whatever, it's still useful.
The more people in a market, all that means is you just sell less at a time. Like
Yeah.
if there's hundreds of people selling an item, you just sell one, for a 24-hour period, 48-hour period. It'll sell eventually, but you don't try to sell 10, if that makes sense. But I think the markets that will be really quick are the cheaper bags. I think everyone, when they go make an alt, the first thing they do is they check for rune cloth bags, even in TBC. It's just like a natural thing to do. It's a somewhere in the middle bag. On my server, runecloth bags are more expensive than netherweave bags, and they still sell.
By the time you get to TBC, everybody, or 80% of the people that are on the server are getting netherweave, where there's only a smaller percentage getting runecloth.
I think it's mostly alts. Yeah, I'm just saying in general, you probably want to aim for making bags right out the gate if you want to play a cloth class that's going to use tailoring at the start of Wrath.
So I'm going to have a mage on my second account, which is going to be tailoring and enchanting. So like every green. This is why I need to plan out well how I'm going to get gold on my main, because every green that I get is going to my DE. Every bit of cloth I get is going to it. So straight away I'm losing so much in sort of raw, just vendoring potential. Do you know what I mean? But I know it's going to be worth it in the long run.
Do you think there's enough time for people to make 2 characters? Well, let me put it this way. 1 character to 70 in the pre-patch and another one to like 65. You think there's enough time?
Well, I'm prioritizing leveling over anything else. So basically, I want in the pre-patch, my aim is to have a 70 Paladin on my main account, a 70 Rogue on my second account, and preferably at least nearly 70 on a DK.
Okay, and this is all on the Fresh servers. We're still talking.
On Fresh, yeah. So that gives us, if I look, so Fresh launches on the 30th, 3 weeks. I mean, and I'm going to be going some, obviously.
No, I think it's realistic to have 1.5 characters for the average person. It's definitely a matter of, like, if you're not in Fresh, you've got an army of alts at this point because you've been taking advantage of the 50% buff. I think you want to be able to do things in Wrath like disenchant, make bags, prospect, mill. Like you should have the end goal of eventually be able to do all those things so that you can get the most out of your farming in Wrath. But you have plenty of time to do that. So for now, I think getting a Tailor alt is fantastic. I think it's a good way to make money.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. 3 weeks for the an average person who's only playing a couple of hours a night or something. Just getting 170 is going to be,
but see, you got that streamer buff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I fully intend on putting a good 12 to 14 hours a day in, and I'm really fortunate that the wife has took a week's holiday as well. The launch of pre-patch, so I've not got to worry about the kids either. I can literally more or less play. I mean, I might even be playing 18 hours a day for the first few days.
I look forward to the streams.
So we've spoke about primary professions, and obviously if people enjoy this conversation, we'll definitely go deep dive into all of this stuff. So an hour, maybe hour and a half, just talking about professions on Fresh, professions in Wrath. But we've not mentioned the best professions, literally we've glossed over them. I mean, fishing and cooking, the best professions in WoW. Is it worth... Should you do that in the pre-patch? What do you like? What's your thoughts on that?
So you can do it. If you're going to do that, you're not part of the group that's rushing, right? Which is probably the better group to be part of. You're settling down. You're leveling your character. Even though you're 50% faster, you're stopping to smell the roses. You're gathering your professions or staying up to date with where you're at in your leveling process. Fishing, especially if you target certain areas, different pools, is incredible for making money. You start to get, fish that give you mana per 5. If you go to Tenaris or Feralis, you can get pools that give tremendous amounts of money in terms of mid-level items. I don't know if you've ever done the Tanaris Coast and just fished those pools for like an hour and a half.
Yeah,
Incredible amounts.
I done a fishing stream, believe it or not, a good probably a year ago now. Literally kitted the whole room out with like fishing nets, fishing poles. You know, I made it look like I was in a tent basically. And all I done for hours was just sat on the coast of Tanaris fishing, and made immense gold.
That's fantastic. And those turtles, if you were to kill them between the pools, can give you a golden pearl. That Tanaris Coast was my favorite farming spot in regular Classic WoW for my healers that couldn't like do a lot of damage. But that being said, there's all these fancy little spots you can find where fishing makes you a lot of money, and actually fishing coupled with a enchanter can make a lot of money because the fishing will lead to a lot of chests which have a lot of items in them you can disenchant. There's oil spills you can get in different areas of the game. There's a lot of ways to make money with the fishing, and what's cool about the fishing is it immediately funds the cooking. So if you can look up guides online, maybe you've done them too, where you level fishing as you're leveling cooking, and it literally supplies the other. And a lot of people want food buffs, especially at higher levels. So when you get the wrath, if you're one of the first people to start cooking things, you're gonna make a lot of money off that too. And I'm sure there'll be guides about what's best for raiding and whatnot. But yeah, fishing is a good money maker. Cooking is a good money maker. In general, I would be careful. There are some guides out there that tell you to use certain foods that are nowhere near as efficient as using the fishing skill to fund your cooking. What I would do is I would use fishing to level cooking, and then all of the meats, especially things like clam meat and boar meat, things that are in the common, 1 to 450 guides, sell those on the auction house. When I'm leveling a new character, cooking meat often funds the character. It's actually crazy. Like, people will go on a guide and they'll say, I need 40 boar meat. And they'll just go to the auction house and just buy it whatever price it is. I'm not talking about week 1, but if that makes sense, like, don't waste the meats that you're getting. Don't vendor them. Save them. Use fishing to level your cooking.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I mean, like you say, when you're fishing out of wreckages and stuff as well, and getting the crates that have got stuff in. I mean, you can even get like mining materials, ore and stuff like that, which I really like it. I really like fishing as a source of getting gold. But the reason is, like I said earlier when I was talking about being able to just level off stream, just chilling, watching Netflix, just setting your sound alerts up so the actual fishing noise is really loud, and just sat watching telly or something, or even on the Steam Deck while you're fishing. It's a great way of getting just like mindless gold.
That's a really good point, that it breaks up the grind and you can do it semi-AFK.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those where I very often finish by fishing. As in, if I'm like, I'm bored, I can't be able to do any more questing, I'll just stand there and fish just for 10 minutes, whatever. I mean, the actual raw, even getting the fish and then cooking them and vendoring them, it's still silver, copper, whatever that you wouldn't be getting if you was just stood there doing nothing. So it's actually, I love it. Honestly, fishing and cooking is one of my favourite ways of making gold, which sounds a bit sad.
Yeah, I mean, you can level the fishing from a major city too. You don't even have to leave. But I would recommend following a guide and fishing up what you need to level the cooking.
Yeah, 100%.
The meats are just worth too much money. You shouldn't be cooking boar meat, or especially clam meat. It's a major blocker when people are trying to level.
If you are just following a guide and leveling cooking to be able to make fish feasts or whatever, you're really losing out on a big portion of that profession by not being able to go fishing as well, I think.
Yeah, you're just losing money.
All right, well, we can move on from professions then. So the next topic is what you should keep and what you should throw away. So thinking of fresh, various different levels, could be anything from level 1 to level 70. What are some key things that a lot of people will just vendor or delete, that potentially you could keep hold of and make a lot of gold with later on. Now, believe it or not, that was just part 1 of 5. So if you want to see all the other parts, be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you want to see the rest. Because ultimately, it's down to you whether part 2, 3, 4, and 5 get published. So be sure to like and subscribe. Check out Rested XP in the pinned comment and roll the outro. There's lots of ways you can support the channel to keep me here putting out World of Warcraft content and covering all future MMOs. Consider joining the channel as a member. You get access to emotes. Everyone will know you're a member when you comment on future videos because you get a nice icon next to your name. And you get access to members-only videos, which I'll be putting a lot of on the channel throughout the year. Additionally, there's a Patreon link in the description as well. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you on the next one.